everybody, and welcome to the Pick Reveal Show, Week 17. I am John. That's Eric. The Army has spoken. Let's dive in and see what they have to say today. Green Bay -5 at Chicago. The Army likes Green Bay. Eric, let's look in and talk about why, man.
Yeah, big agreement with the Army for me on this one, John. I think the misconception with this game and the reason the spread is under a touchdown is that everybody knows that this is a win and in game for Chicago. Their offense has been on fire for the past few weeks, and it would seem that Green Bay really doesn't have much to play for, but I disagree. You look at what happened on Sunday night where Green Bay absolutely pounded the Titans. I think Green Bay really recognizes what an advantage it's going to be for them because of their home field, because of the cold, to win home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. The Packers also realize if they get this win, they lock up the number one seed, meaning they can rest playoff wild card weekend rather than this week. So I don't think the Packers are going to take this game off. It's under a touchdown. Big agreement here for me. Their offense is humming. Second and third down conversions on offense, third in offensive yards per play. And you got to remember as well, Green Bay has finally found a run defense. That was the big problem. They were giving up droves as far as overall rushing to backs earlier in the season. This unit's really come together and they've stopped that. The Bears have looked solid, but I think it's time for this streak to come to an end. They have not scored 3 consecutive games of 30 points on offense in 7 seasons. The Mitch Trubisky story has been good, but if there was ever a time to short this run of success, I think this is it. Agreement with the Packers here, -5. I think they need this game and play just as hard as Chicago does, and the Bears season comes to an end.
Agree. We've talked a lot about motivation factor this season, and the motivation factor is there for the Bears, but is also there for Green Bay. I agree. They need this win. If the Saints win this week and Green Bay loses, then, Green Bay's lost that home field to the Saints, which is going to be a deciding factor, I think, in this playoffs. Whoever hosts that NFC Championship game is going to have a little bit of advantage. I know home field advantage has been close to 500 this year, but when you're talking about playing in Lambeau versus having to play in New Orleans, if that's the case, big difference there. The Bears definitely have something to play for here. Like you said, the offense has been on fire. But just going back and looking at the season, the Bears have only beat one 500 team or better, and that was Tampa Bay, and that was at home on a Thursday night game. I don't think they're coming out of this game with a victory. Even though they are at home, look for Aaron Rodgers to come in and lead his team to a victory. 5 points might be a lot, but I think Green Bay definitely pulls this one out.
And I really like the point you just made about beating Tampa Bay, because you got to remember Tom Brady obviously is widely considered the GOAT, but that was early in the season on a short week for a team with a new quarterback, a lot of new personnel, and it was the first time that they had a short week that season in a season with no OTAs, with no preseason games. So getting ready on a short week for a Thursday night game was a real challenge for a roster like that. So for Tampa to drop that game, it's understandable the Bears had an edge. Conversely, when they've been up against good teams, they really have folded. So that's really good insight. Really good insight there.
Thanks, man. Any concerns with this pick at all?
Yeah, David Bakhtiari, who's considered one of the best left tackles in the NFL, hurt his knee this week. He's out for the year, which actually I think is more of a cause for concern for those who are looking for Green Bay to win the Super Bowl this year. It's not really going to affect this game as much, and typically even the best left tackles are only thought to be worth anywhere from a quarter to 3/4 of a point in Vegas. So it's nothing to get too worked up about, but it is a concern. This guy was going to be responsible for knocking Khalil Mack off of Aaron Rodgers' trail, and he's not going to be there anymore. So against a defense this good, it might be a little bit of a concern. And then just like what we said, another minor concern, the Bears are playing motivated, man, winning in. And you don't get much more motivated than that. This is a true playoff game for the Bears. So there's a little bit of a concern there. But again, I think that's well known, and that's priced into this line. The reason it's under 7, I wouldn't be surprised if this got to 6, maybe even 6.5 before kickoff. I don't think it'll get to 7, because then you'd have too many wise guys buying in at the +7 with the Bears. But we're getting a good number with the better team. So a few reasons to be concerned, but again, big agreement on the Packers.
Buffalo -3 hosting Miami. The Army likes Buffalo here, Eric. Let's take a look and see why.
Yeah, good reason for this, and an agreement for me. even though Miami is motivated and Buffalo pretty much knows where they're going to be in the AFC standings. Buffalo, first and third down conversions on offense. They are hard to get off the field. Sixth overall in yards per play. So one thing to keep in mind, though, is that Ryan Fitzpatrick is out in this game. He's not going to play because of COVID protocol. And Tua has now been benched a number of times over the past few weeks. There is no safety valve here for the Dolphins to bring Fitzmagic in late and do what he does. So I think that's also a real concern. Miami's defense is phenomenal, widely considered to be the best defense in the NFL. And obviously Miami is playing motivated. This is another win and in scenario, whereas they still could get in if they lose, but they're going to need a little bit of help. But I think the reason that cancels out, and this is similar to the previous game, is don't underestimate the Bills' motivation. The Chiefs, depending on what line you've looked at, are either 0-7 or 1-6 over the last 7 weeks against the spread. The Chiefs have been grossly underperforming against expectation, including a game where they needed a missed field goal late to knock off Atlanta. Now, the Falcons have been a tough out this year, so that's not a knock on them. But my point is that what if the Chiefs drop the divisional game? They're the 1 seed, right? They have next week off without a doubt. But what if they come out flat in that divisional game and get knocked off? Well, now you're talking about the 2nd seed hosting the AFC Championship game. So it's why I think the Steelers and the Bills are going to be motivated. Big Ben isn't playing for the Steelers on top of that. So if the Bills get the win here and the Steelers don't, and they're 10-point dogs to the Browns, the Bills get the win here, they're now the 2 seed. And in theory, if the Chiefs underperform as they have been over the last month and a half, they get bounced, and now all of a sudden Buffalo is hosting the AFC Championship game. I think that's an element here that is a little bit underrepresented in the mass thinking about this game. Big agreement. I get the significantly better offense, a significantly better quarterback, comparable defenses, although Miami is better, and comparable head coaches. -3, that's a good number. Wish it was -2.5, but at -3, I can live with it. Big agreement with the Army's Bills -3.
I agree, but I think this is a lean more than a like for me, just because of the motivation factor. Miami has an opportunity here, but I think with Fitzmagic being out of the game, this is going to be a tough one to pull out for Tua. But if he does it, I think he solidifies himself as a front runner to keep his job down there in Miami. If he can put the team on his back and get them to the playoffs. The one thing he does not do is he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I know he looked sloppy last week, but he keeps himself within himself. He doesn't try to bomb it down the field. He takes controlled passes. If he's able to manage this game well and the defenses hold up, this could be a field goal game. And, both teams have good field goal kickers. It could come down to, a last minute field goal, or the motivation of trying to make the playoffs rather than just solidify a spot where you already know you're in might get trumped by Miami. So look for this one to be close. Again, a lean, not a like for me, but I think it'll be an exciting game. Any concerns?
Well, I do, but just to comment on what you said there, this is the Tua test, and I think that's really what this decision for anybody looking to bet this game comes down to is, do you believe in Tua or not? And there are going to be a lot of people that do and a lot of people that don't. Right now, Miami holds Houston's pick in the draft. And if the draft were to happen today, that would be the number 3 overall pick. When's the next time a Brian Flores coach team is going to be picking in the top 5, and particularly picking that high in a quarterback deep draft? There's a lot of good signal callers coming out of school this year. So the question is, do the Dolphins pull the trigger and take that BYU quarterback? Justin Fields, if he's still on the board, do you have to take him, particularly after what he did in the Sugar Bowl last night? The guy looked unbelievable. So, it's not now unheard of, considering what happened with, interestingly enough, Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray. It's not unheard of that a team will draft a quarterback in the top 10 one year and turn around and do it again the next year. If you don't have the guy behind center, then you got nothing. And that's really what's been proven. And just one other thing that you said is that it's true. A lot of pundits gave Tua a lot of respect for the first few starts that he had because he wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't turning the ball over. So that's good insight and a good point. However, what I would come back with is now it's actually looking like he's too tentative. right? You're not going to throw interceptions if you're throwing dink and dunks to your running backs and, little outs to your tight ends, et cetera. At least you shouldn't be. It's when you're bombing it down the field that you get picked off. But man, you got to go for it sometimes. And they are up against an offense that's humming. They're going to need points. And so does that tentativeness end up hurting Tua and hurting the Dolphins' ability? I think that it does. But to answer your question, any concerns here? Yeah, Miami, first and third down defense, widely considered to be the best defense in the NFL. And so there could be some issues with Buffalo having as much success on offense as they had. And without a doubt, look, a cornered animal, they're the most dangerous here, and Miami needs this win more than Buffalo. Really, as I had mentioned previously, Buffalo is just looking for an opportunity to possibly host the AFC. Otherwise, this one really doesn't make that much of a difference for them, whereas it's everything for the Dolphins this year. So the motivation factor, although I, again, don't think it is as lopsided as a lot of people do, the motivation factor is the minor concern here. Again, I get the better offense, comparable head coaches, fairly comparable defenses, although Miami's is a little bit better. Long story short, as long as this is 3 or under, agreement with me, Buffalo -3.
Cornered animals is right. Last time we saw Tua cornered in a game was back in the national championship game. He had one of the best halves that a quarterback had, especially coming off the bench. So this could be an exciting one to watch. I'm real excited about this one.
Sure, in the national championship game, and that's a good point. But you got to remember, he is throwing to guys who are going to be selling insurance or going to work for McKinsey or going to become accountants or lawyers or whatever those guys are going to end up being. He's not going up against world caliber NFL cornerbacks and the strongest, biggest, fastest guys that God made here. So I realize SEC competition is good, and I'm not trying to limit his accomplishments in college, but Alabama has all world NFL linemen he's throwing to. I mean, you look, Alabama had 2 wide receivers taken in the first 15 picks last year. He's throwing to the cream of the crop in college. The NFL's a lot more even. So I understand your point that he did well in that game, but man, that's college, and that doesn't always translate to the pros, particularly at the quarterback spot.
Well, there you have it, everybody. The Army has spoken. Green Bay and Buffalo this week. Join us next week as we go over our pick reveal show. We'll be talking about our picks this week and then what the playoff picture looks like next week. Eric, anything before we sign off, man?
Just a warm wish for everybody as far as having a happy, productive new year, and a big thanks for sticking with us throughout the entire season, getting those picks in. We are all systems go for the playoffs, so we'll be covering more or less every single game, letting you know what the Army's thinking about all of them. The playoffs are going to be really fun and really kind of focus and concentrate our efforts. Hopefully we can pull out some big winners here as the playoffs roll around. So stick with us, pickarmy.com. And again, Happy New Year, and thank you for your participation.
Happy New Year, everybody. And for Eric, I'm John from Pick Army HQ. We'll see you later, guys.
Thanks, John. Good stuff.